When we last left our hero, Captain Picard, he was walking down the hallway, feeling very assured that some part of Data had survived in B4, which is probably the only reason why he didn't just simply throw B4 out the airlock, which is what I wanted to do. But now, going ahead, 20 years later, Captain Picard is about to return. Only he may not be Captain Picard. He may just be Jean-Luc Picard. And it is the dawn of the 25th century. And more importantly, the Romulan Empire has collapsed in the wake of events that took place just off-screen of the first J.J. Star Trek film. So anybody want to make a comment right now? Mary, you got anything?
I guess I will be interested to see where this new Picard show goes because, interviews with behind-the-scenes folks say that they had a very different vision for this new Picard show from what The Next Generation was. And apparently the reason why Patrick Stewart signed on was because he wanted something different. Like, he didn't want to just do another Next Generation, which I understand. Like, as an actor, as an artist, you want to expand yourself. At the same time, I'm like, but I liked The Next Generation. So I'll be really curious to see what they do with his character. I think, like, just based on what's been said, it's probably going to be darker, like a little grittier. Maybe, like, the tone would be closer to Discovery just because that seems to be, like, the direction they're going in, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, I know Discovery has had some mixed reviews, but I think part of the reason for that was because it's supposed to take place, like, shortly before the original series, and it seems so different from the original series versus if you were to take, what we last saw of the, Next Generation era, and then fast forward 20 years, like, the universe could have changed drastically since then. I mean, think about how our world has changed in the last 20 years. So I will be very fascinated to see what they do. Yes?
And see, I wasn't interested at all when I heard that we were getting Jean-Luc Picard back, because we had him for, 15, 20 years. We've already seen that whole extension. I was interested once I heard that he was going to be the only character in the new series, essentially, and that they can take this in any direction. So I was interested after they said it wasn't going to be a reboot of Next Gen.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah, because I guess we did get a good, how many years of that era? Like, they started in, 87, was it?
Yeah, 87, and
I guess
Voyager wrapped up in...
DS9 ended in 1999, or Voyager ended in 2000.
Voyager ended in 2000, so...
Good, 13 years. Were there? When was the last movie?
The last movie was in 2002, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, 15 years, yeah.
Yeah, Star Trek Nemesis, not... yeah.
Wasn't bad.
Wasn't great.
You, sir.
I'll be interested to see. We last left the series finale, All Good Things. Picard is older. He's suffering from some kind of
Dementia?
Yeah, dementia. Thank you. And where they're going with this series, he's going to be almost the same age. You figure the events of after the show ended, then you have maybe another 8 more years with movies, and then you have fast forward after that. It's going to be around roughly the same time. So I'll be curious how he was able to dodge not contracting that dementia disease.
Now, I think you said that this was not going to be actually a sequel to The Next Generation, but rather from the Kelvin timeline, right?
It's going to tie in with the Kelvin timeline just a little bit, just in the sense that, okay, the destruction of Romulus is the taking off point to how Spock and Nero end up in the Kelvin timeline. Mm-hmm. But this will be back in the Prime universe. I mean, what happened after Spock left this universe and went over to the JJ or Kelvin timeline?
Okay, so it's going to be a sequel to the original, Next Generation timeline, not to the JJ timeline.
Right.
Oh.
Right. The only thing it has in common is the destruction of Romulus. That is canon. That is a thing that happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
But I'm looking forward to it in the sense that for the last few years, fans have always been complaining about Star Trek, like going back to the time frame of the original series, or before that with Enterprise. They wanted to see something that takes place post TNG in the post TNG era. So we're finally going to be getting that at last with this Picard series, and we're going to see what the state of the galaxy is like after that. And I'm curious to see, like, how did the destruction of Romulus affect the state of the galaxy? Because they were one of the big three, and that leaves a power vacuum. So, yet usually nature abhors a vacuum. Something's going to fill that. What's going to fill that? Is that going to destabilize the relation? Yeah, is that going to destabilize relations between the Federation and the Klingons? Will another alien race that we come in, like maybe the Tholians or the Gorn? That'd be interesting, or something like that. So we'll see, because apparently it's something that, from what I understand, it affects him very much, because at the end of Nemesis, you saw the beginnings of a sort of rapprochement between the Romulans and the Federation, just like there was between the Romulans and the Klingons. And that's kind of thrown, that probably, and Picard probably had some hand in that, so I could see where that might affect him on a personal level.
You had something, sir?
Well, I just assumed that the series was going to be drama on a vineyard.
Well, it could.
I don't know. Has anyone said anything about whether all the tie-in novels and comics were going to still be canon, or were they going to pull a Star Wars and pretend that none of that exists?
The comics and the novels never have counted as canon.
Yeah.
They never have. That's...
Don't throw the writers. At least not officially.
I was like, well, don't tell them. Like, they're all here, so don't tell them.
Yeah. Well, that's always, because I thought they came up with some damn good storylines.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I just want to throw one thing out there. What do people feel about Picard as an ambassador?
I like it. Yeah. That would have been his the trajectory that would have been very much in his character to do that.
See, I've never really thought that, because Picard, when he was a young man, he had all these options. He could have gone into the diplomatic corps. He could have become an archaeologist. But his driving passion, the thing he proved to be the greatest at, was being a starship captain. I think that is his calling. I think that's what he loves being. I think the reason I base this is because, remember the episode The Captain's Holiday? Where, he's just come back from this diplomatic mission and he's mad as hell. These people have aggravated the hell out of him. He just wants to get back to the Enterprise, and he's just clearly exhausted. And then suddenly, they pressure him to taking a vacation. And to me, I think he loved being a captain, being in charge of things. I think diplomacy was just part of his job, and there was something he was good at, but he was a discoverer. He was an adventurer. Yes, ma'am.
Second, I want to see something different, and a captain who is born to be a captain. We saw that already with Kirk, who would rather be demoted than give up the center seat. And so, because Picard had that start early in his career for the diplomatic corps, that yen was already there. That's why he was so good at being a captain and dealing with new races, because of that diplomatic experience that he had. And I would like to see that explored, since before Next Gen, he was already a captain. He wasn't a new captain. He had already been a captain. And then he got the captaincy of the flagship. So where do you go from there? Because he didn't seem to have the attitude to be in charge of all of Starfleet, because that's politics. And he just wanted peace and discovery, and that he was not going to get that in San Francisco. No. So I can see him leaving the center seat, because I've done it for 20 years, and doing something different. Yeah. They don't live to 80; they live to like 100 and something. Let them do something else.
Yeah, but you can also see there would be a great conflict within him, from what you're saying and what you're saying. That I want to transition over here, but he would always want to be. But wait a minute, if I was a captain doing this, but I'm really supposed to be doing
this. That's true.
That conflict within would be really cool, especially with people around him. When they do it differently than him, then what is he?
When he's on his ship going somewhere and the captain says, I'm going to do it this way. Well,
where does he play the role of couching or taking over? Yeah. That'd be really good. Or coaching or taking over. That'd be really interesting.
Yeah. Sir in the back?
Yeah, so I think the character Jean-Luc Picard, at his heart, he's an explorer. He wants to learn new things, whether that's as a captain, whether that's as an archaeologist. We know that's a passion of his. I think that would be very interesting, because we know he was this close to not, joining Starfleet and to becoming an archaeologist. it would be interesting to see him exploring that aspect.
Yeah.
It's like, I've done the Starfleet thing, I've succeeded there,
Yeah.
now let me go follow my heart.
Yeah. I don't see Picard as being like wanting to continue to be a Starfleet captain like Kirk was. Kirk, of course, I keep thinking back to that line in Wrath of Khan, where it's like, get back your command, get it back before you become part of this collection. He loved being in that chair. Picard is not that type of person, and he didn't even want to become admiral. He didn't want to have that. His thing is, I see him like he was saying, like maybe explore, maybe on his own, if not as the captain of the starship. Maybe that will play in somehow to how it affected him, or what he is trying to look at as far as like the destruction of Romulus, because that is part. I could see him being maybe not an explorer, but having that need to know, maybe almost like a detective kind of.
That's a possibility. Certainly, he loved detective novels.
Yes.
And I mean, one thing because the destruction of Romulus is supposed to be such a big turning point in his life. Maybe he wants to go find out why this happened.
Right.
And maybe also leaving the captaincy and going off and doing this. Maybe there's a journey to him coming back to becoming a captain once again. Sorry, did you have a question, sir?
Me?
Yeah.
Not that I could think of right now.
Okay.
But
I was just going to
yeah.
add that he was also offered the position of Commandant and being in charge of Starfleet Academy at one point during the series. So.
Yeah, back in season 1, yeah.
So when I first heard that he was going to be back in New Star Trek, I thought, are they finally going to do a good Starfleet Academy series? Oh, well.
Yeah. You just walked in, sir. Did you want to add something? Okay.
I have a question I just want to throw out there.
Yeah.
So, what is it about Picard, do you think, that makes him such a fascinating character that all these years later, let me just put this into perspective. His character debuted before I was born. That is how long he has been a legend. What do you think it is about him? Is it his character? Is it Patrick Stewart's performance? Is it all of the above? What is it that makes him such a powerful character and such an enduring character, and what does he mean to you? Yes, ma'am.
Well, certainly Patrick Stewart is a wonderful actor, but I think part of the Picard thing is he is a very complex character. And when we talk about Picard versus Kirk, Kirk was not complex. I mean, he was just, he was solely interested in being the captain. Picard had a lot of different interests, and I think he was just a very complex.
I'll second that. I like to think of him as a Renaissance man. He dabbled in everything. We've all touched on that. He was a captain. He was an explorer. He's an archaeologist.
A flautist.
A flautist, yes. He's an intellectual. He's a Shakespeare lover. He's all these things. He's a man who's able to see all sides of something and come to a conclusion. He is a military he can be a tactician. He can be a warrior when he wants to, but to him that's not the only solution that is available to him. If he looks for if there is a diplomatic or nonviolent solution, that of course is the preferable option.
Somebody else. Come on, somebody think of a
Don't be shy.
There we
I
go.
will say that I always found Picard to be sort of ironic. I mean, not in a bad sort of way, but why did he ever become a Starfleet captain when he always wanted to be like, no, let's do it the non-violent way first. I mean, obviously we should,
I think it's because he kind of wanted to hold Starfleet to a higher standard. And I think part of it also, just the way he was written, came out of Gene Roddenberry, where he was in his life. I mean, if you look at Kirk versus Picard, Roddenberry was a much younger man when he wrote Kirk. And that's what he thought of, I think he was sort of projecting, he wanted to be the guy with the bravado who, got all the women and,
Coming off of Westerns.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he pitched it as Wagon Train to the Stars? Yeah.
The Stars, yes.
And then by the time The Next Generation came around, it was a number of decades later. He was an older guy, wiser guy, and he had this vision of I just want to be peaceful. And if any of you have ever watched the documentary Chaos on the Bridge about the writer's room during those chaotic first 2 seasons of The Next Generation, apparently his Roddenberry's dedication to this vision of piece in a series, caused a lot of problems in the writer's room because how do you write conflict when everyone gets along?
Yeah.
But I think like Picard is very much a product of the fact that by then Roddenberry was older, wiser, and probably a little more complex after like a lifetime of experience.
You definitely was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This gentleman again.
I'd be curious to see, because Picard suffered a lot. We saw he was tortured by the Cardassians at that time. He was assimilated by the Borg. In Generations, he loses his brother and nephew, horrible circumstances. In the last movie, not the best movie, but I would think, okay, I had this clone of myself try to kill me and basically try to, overthrow the Federation. I'd be curious to see how damaged he is when we see him next. I would think all those experiences would mess. Their strongest person. So I mean, we got to see some cracks in his armor in First Contact. That from what he had suffered before. I would be curious to see if he's still broken and when we see him next.
I almost hope so. Just because I feel like it'd be interesting for him as a character, and also interesting to watch Patrick Stewart tackle that role, because Patrick Stewart is such a great actor, and he wouldn't have taken this role unless there was like something really meaty acting wise. And I feel like if Picard was presented probably perhaps broken after years of trauma and having to get back on his feet, that would be a cool thing to watch. I think.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to what you say, he's probably not the captain anymore. Is this a story of him trying to get back to the captain's chair?
Now, is Patrick Stewart still working as a voice actor in American Dad, or is that series long ended?
No,
that's
still going on, hon.
Oh well, then maybe he still is. I mean, I would not be terribly unsurprised if Seth MacFarlane got talked into directing an episode of the new Picard show or two. I mean, he had Jonathan Frakes come in for one day into the writer's room and hang out. So
yeah,
we'll probably see Jonathan Frakes directing a few episodes. Right now, they're playing on a 3-season story or 3-season TV show. Kurtzman, I know, wants to go for 5, but I guess we'll see.
When is the premiere of it?
This year sometime.
At the end of this year.
Yeah.
Or possibly beginning next year. I know they start filming in April.
Yeah. I think the idea is, I seem to remember an article where they said CBS wants to have a Star Trek show on constantly. So it's when Discovery is off, then the Picard show will come on, and when that's done, then you'll have the Section 31 show, and then Discovery will be back on.
They announced the Section 31
show?
Yes. Just a side note, Michelle Yao will be getting her own spinoff from Discovery.
Question is, as which version of Giorgio?
Well, obviously the mirror one, because that's the one that we still see,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's Star Trek. You can bring anyone back from the dead.
True.
Oh, yeah. It's death is just
I think mirror Giorgio is more interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely she is. And I'm really excited about that. I think she's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And
Oh, yeah.
Michelle Yao is such an amazing actress.
Also, the Oscars totally snubbed her. She should have been nominated.
She didn't get nominated?
She didn't get nominated.
What the hell are
for
they
Crazy Rich
thinking?
Asians.
Yeah,
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
Huh? No, for Crazy Rich Asians this year.
wow.
A lot of people.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She plays a major role and is really good. So a lot of us were very sad that she did not get a nomination.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't understand why my friend Mojo keeps saying she's a terrible actress. I'm like, what planet are you living on, Mojo? What are you smoking? Anyway.
Yeah. He's not allowed to come to any of the meetings.
What?
Mojo's not allowed to come to the meetings.
Yeah, he's not. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
As his friend, I have to apologize for that.
Okay, somebody we haven't heard from. Anybody want to throw out a comment? I mean, you guys in the back, you're sitting all the way back there. Do you want to add anything?
There's plenty of room up here.
We don't bite. We're not going to make you, we're not going to give you tribbles or anything.
What about James McAvoy being cast as a young Jean-Luc for flashbacks?
Cool.
Well, nothing's definite about that, but he said he would really love to do it, and I'm sure if they're going to do an episode like that, Patrick's got his number on his phone somewhere.
Well, I understand him and Patrick Stewart are really good buddies. That
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
They're
the
very
X-Men.
keen for the idea.
That would just make my head explode if, like, you know, the same people played both Professor X and Picard in 2 different generations. The crossover potential there, man.
Yeah. If they do that, I'm reminding you of that.
Like, my head's gonna just explode. It's like, what?
Yeah.
And you can write that fanfic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, she will. Sorry, again, miss? You wanted to say something? Oh, okay, sorry.
She's sewing or something.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, come on, don't make us feel alone here. We have chocolate. We
What are
we
your-
have chocolate
okay.
to give you. Yes, ma'am.
When we were talking about what direction Picard might take in the new show, I think it is important to remember how old he'll be, how much older. People do change as they get older, and their focus can change greatly. Met a guy recently who was a lawyer all his life, and his wife was worried about him being retired and gave him painting lessons. And in like 12 years, he's really good at it. And his passion has changed from his work to painting, just because his wife didn't win him underfoot when he retired. But Picard may go off in some direction we can't even predict, which would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
When I first heard about the Picard series, I was thinking, okay, good. In Nemesis, our heroes didn't get a good send-off. And I was thinking, okay, maybe this will give, depending on how long this Picard series lasts, this will give him a send-off. And I was also thinking of the other cast members too, but I haven't heard whether any of them could make a guest appearance or not. I was kind of hoping they would get a positive send-off that they didn't get in Nemesis.
Yeah. Right now, everybody is kind of like, they're sort of like, they would really like to guest star on there. Michael Dorn, however, has said that if he's going to guest star, he doesn't want to just like have put on the Worf makeup and just do a walk on. He wants to actually be part of a few episodes. If he's going to do it, he wants to be in it for a while. But, I would not be terribly surprised if Gates McFadden or Will Wheaton or Marina or Jonathan or LeVar, beam in there at some point. Or even our favorite bartender. She may, yeah.
She would totally be there.
Oh, definitely.
She's like Star Trek's biggest fangirl.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know the story about when she first saw the original series on
Yeah.
TV?
Yes.
Look, Ma.
There's a black lady on TV and she ain't no maid.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was-
Iconic.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she called up. She called up Gene, or was it Rick? I guess it would have had to have been Gene, wouldn't it, when she got the part? Season 2, yeah, because she came in season 2, and she asked, was there some part that she could
Yeah,
play?
she like demanded that role, right? Because that was
Right.
like in her heyday, like when she was like one of the biggest stars in the U.S.
Right.
I think, was that after she got her Oscar for Ghost?
No, it's just before.
Before. Oh, yeah.
Right, because she got that in '91, and she'd been, Guinan was like her part-time job at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think that's after The Color Purple made her.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
that
Well
that made
known.
her, yeah, because she was already a fairly well-accomplished stand-up comic, but it was Color Purple made her a big name in Hollywood at that point.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So what are some of y'all's favorite Picard episodes?
The flute.
The flute one?
The Inner Light.
The Inner Light.
Inner Light, yeah.
Yeah.
That was unbelievable.
I want to
That's
see
tough.
him play his flute.
Sorry.
I want to see him play his flute in the new. And who ended up with the flute when the show was over?
Yeah.
That's the important question.
Who ended up with the flute? Probably, I don't know. That's a
You
good
could have
question.
just asked the set people, hey, can I take this with me? What the heck? Why not?
I don't know. That's a good. I don't know. It's either he has it or maybe it's at Rick Berman's house. I don't know.
They've had a few auctions with like Star Trek props. I wonder if they
Yeah.
auctioned it off for charity.
Ooh,
I think it could
that
have been. Yeah.
Yeah.
that
It's possible.
Because I know they auctioned off like a bunch of, the uniforms, the props and
Yeah.
stuff.
yeah.
I think there was a famous auction over at
Sotheby's.
Sotheby's, where they auctioned off a lot of Star Trek stuff that went from original series to Next Generation.
Yep.
I think I may have seen it, but I can't say 100%.
Yeah. Well, I know that somebody bought the original model for Deep Space Nine. I'm like wondering, are you building an addition to your house to put that thing? That thing was about as big as this
I know
room.
they did a special about, and Michael and Denise Okuda were the people who were helping authenticate some of this stuff. So
Wow.
Yeah.
great people. You should definitely meet them.
I'd say that my favorite Picard episode probably was the Chain of Command parts 1 and 2, just to see just how he was just put through the ringer on that, and just how.
So for those of us with bad memories for names, what happens in those episodes?
That was the one where he was tortured by the Cardassians.
Oh, of course.
The Four Lights
The
episode.
4 Lights
There
episode.
are 4 lights.
Just to see like how.
4 lights.
I just really had to admire that his how he was just able to hold on under stress. He just came that close to breaking just before that, but just what it still would have, like anything else, I think would have broken a lesser person. He still did.
I really appreciated that episode showed him being broken too, because I think there's a tendency with a lot of action films where the hero's being tortured that they're just like, no, I'm fine, like the whole time, and like I like that they show that he was this close to cracking.
Yeah.
No, but he did crack.
He
did crack.
Yeah, he said he almost could see it, but almost.
He told Troy I was going to say it. At the end, he
Yeah.
told Troy, I was going to say it.
I almost believed I saw 5 lights or something, right?
Yeah.
Cracked.
But
Yeah.
we don't know. I mean,
That was actually a reference.
that's always been the thing. Were there 4 lights, or
did he turn on a 5th light? That's something I've always wondered. You had something?
Well, I just want to say that I read somewhere that before he shot that episode, Patrick Stewart went to Amnesty International to consult with them on exactly, what it was like to undergo torture.
Yeah.
Now that torture scene is actually also a reference to George Orwell's 1984.
Yeah.
Ah.
I mean, like
Am I holding up 4 fingers or 5?
Right, exactly.
And if I say 5.
Right. And, I mean, I got into an argument one time in a comic book store. This is before the internet chat room. This is
Geek
back
arguments.
Yes, well this is back in the day. You didn't get into a fight with somebody online. You had to go down to a comic book store if you wanted to get into a fight with somebody.
You had to do that in person.
Yes, you had to get right in their grill and do it. But he went on about how Kirk would not have been broken, and I kept thinking, Kirk never went through anything like that, and it's not a fair comparison between Kirk and Picard because they were written in 2 different times. Kirk was an offshoot of the cowboy western shows
Yeah, the
of the 19th
two-fisted action.
Right. He wasn't, and he wasn't supposed to be weak or broken like that. And Picard is much more of the post-Vietnam, post-80s kind of hero that it's like, okay, we're just like, we don't have all the answers. And that's what makes him so much more interesting, I think, than,
Complex.
certainly movie Kirk is a lot more interesting than TV show Kirk. From Wrath of Khan on up. So
I think it's also partially the actors. Like, I love Shatner, but I feel like Stewart took his role much more seriously. Like, Shatner is like a showman. Like, he, shows up, he looks good, he has that bravado, and it works. And Stewart is, he's a classically trained actor. He, will actually go and talk to Amnesty International for like an episode of a TV show. And there was one incident I heard of that I thought just speaks volumes of just how seriously he took it. So at one point, Good Morning America had their weatherman dressed in a Star Trek uniform, just like, for laughs. And Stewart got really upset about this because he was like, I spend so much effort, making people believe that this is a starship, that this is all real, and you're just gonna like have this guy wear my uniform and make a joke out of it all? No, that's not okay. And he like lost his temper. And I was like, wow, he really took this seriously. He's like, you don't mock my character, you don't mock my show. I was like,
yeah, damn.
yeah.
Okay.
He took it no less seriously than he would have taken like any, Oscar bait role.
Yeah. Well, that
Right,
again, that was one of the reasons I was so.
I think there are very few genre actors who will go that far for a role.
Right. I mean, every part I think he's ever done, it doesn't matter how bad the rest of the movie is, he's going to give you 110%. He's going to make it the best he can. And that's one of the reasons I'll watch anything with him in it. He's one of those actors like he could read the phone book and I'll watch him do it. So, yes, ma'am.
I googled the flute. In 2006, there was 40 years of Star Trek collections on sale by Christie's, and it was sold for $48,000.
Wow.
Christie's
48,000?
Yes.
I knew they would have auctioned it. Like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Wonder if we can get it back.
I don't know.
One more.
I think I enjoyed one of the most of the Joe performances is in First Contact, particularly the scenes he has with Alfred Woodward in the conference room where she's telling him the smart thing to do is to blow up the ship, take the Borg with us. He says, "No, I'm not going to give up the ship." And you know, they have their scene, and you know, she has to talk him off the edge and have him come to a Jesus moment and make the right decision. But I just thought that piece of acting the two of them do is just priceless.
Yeah. And not long after, he actually did play Ahab in a Hallmark movie. He was damn good in it too. Yeah. I just want to say my overall favorite Picard episode, and I really had to think about this because there were just so many. It's a toss-up between the Drumhead and Tapestry.
So what are those two? For those of us who can never remember titles.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
No problem. Okay, Drumhead is the one where, okay, there's been an accident with the warp core. They found out that this Klingon exchange scientist is actually a spy for the Romulans. And this Starfleet Judge Admiral comes aboard to do an investigation, and she starts seeing conspiracies everywhere.
It's very
and he
Yeah,
has,
that's right.
Yeah, and he has the big confrontation where he quotes her father.
Yeah.
And he talks about what he would have believed about what she was doing, and she totally loses it.
Yeah.
And in the end, he wins. And we see him actually get stabbed, and then, you know, I love how he, after he gets stabbed for the last time, he just goes... I laugh with him, because it's just, I can sort of see why he's doing it. And to me, that goes back... Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, it was great, by the way, to learn that Picard wasn't always Picard. That he wasn't always, you know, the smart, studious one. That once upon a time, he was a little punk.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's just what I love about it, because you know, and I mentioned this. I talked to a friend. I said, you know, we all grow. We're not the same person that we were, you know, 10, 20, 30 years ago, and it always gets under my skin when people are suddenly judging people for things that they did. I think the important thing is, have they grown? That's what you need to really look at.
Virginia.
Can they grow? Yeah, but you know, I did stupid and thoughtless things. You wouldn't have wanted to know me when I was like 30 years old. I was a dick. So yeah, you don't. you know, we all stop. We never stop growing. We never stop changing. So
yeah. I think, though, and getting back to my point about why I think he didn't become something else, like an ambassador or an archaeologist, is there is still some part of him that is that hell-bent for leather young man, as Riker described him, who, you know, is ready to take on 3 Nausicaans in a bar fight. There's still a little bit of that in him, but it's more tempered. It's more directed. I mean...
Yeah, exactly.
More focused.
You know, it's like when Q was talking about all the things he did after the bar fight, like leading the rescue mission to rescue the ambassador. I forget the name of the planet, but it's like, yeah, that's still him. That's still the guy who got in the bar fight, you know, and he's the guy who jumped up and took command of the Stargazer when the first officer and the captain were killed. And, you know, he took over when he was 29, which was younger than when Kirk became captain of the Enterprise. So, yeah. Total badass. So
that was a really smart writing decision too, because it could have been so easy for the writers to be like, oh yeah, Picard when he was young, you know, he was the studious one, and it's very smart of them to be like, you know what, let's not go in that direction. Like, let's give it a more interesting angle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, the character who is fully formed from the writer's mind is just never that interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, if they're going to be the same they were on page 1 as they are on page 300, it's not much of a story.
Yeah, it's kind of the characters don't grow. It's not really worth reading.
Yeah.
Although, if you ask Kirk's nemesis Finnegan, when Kirk was younger, he was apparently more studious. I think there was a quote from...
yeah, not the Kelvin universe, but in the original. That's right. They did point that out. That
if you
Kirk
watch
was
the episode Shore Leave, I think Finnegan has a line that says, Kirk is like a stack of books with legs. You either think or you sink.
Yeah, and there's I forget which episode it was, but someone asked him, you know, if he was serious in his younger days. It's serious. I was positively grim.
I guess, yeah, they kind of both went in, they both started at different places, but obviously Kirk had more of the Starfleet pedigree because his dad was a Starfleet officer. And Picard was the first person in his family to ever join Starfleet. In fact, his father and his brother were just outraged that he had decided that he didn't want to stay on the family farm, that he was going to go into Starfleet. And
Yeah, I think my favorite episode was the one where he goes home after he's done being Locutus and he's like needs some time to recover. I forget the title because I don't know titles.
Family.
Yes.
yeah. That,
A lot of funny moments in there.
Yeah, I also
Yeah.
love that it was an episode that just focused on his character, and there was not much going on with Starfleet and all that. We got to just learn to who Picard is as a person.
yeah. And he was definitely tormented in his soul over what had happened because he could remember everything that the Borg had forced him to do. And this whole thing where he was like, I tried to stop them. I couldn't stop them.
Yeah.
It was just, and it certainly played into the later episodes and into First Contact, with the Borg. That hatred that he would always feel for them. So, okay.
Also in the first episode of DS9.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking of that.
Where Cisco tells Picard, "Yes, we met at Wolf 359," and you can see Picard flinch just a little bit. He's like, "Oh."
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you kind of were a little bit involved in the death of my wife.
And he's like,
Awkward.
Very awkward.
So,
yes.
But that's why diplomacy will be interesting because he has that brash attitude. He's not going to talk people to death like Sarek and wait for an opportunity. Because that's what Sarek said. It was on purpose. He let them all fight and tire each other out, and then he would come in. And I don't think that Picard's going to have that kind of patience to sit there for days on end and listening to people. He's going to say, because he has a starship captain in him, that brash young man who's going to come in and say, what about this? Think about this idea. How about you try it this way? So I think that he'll have a different diplomacy. More excited. Right? We're thinking a series about a diplomat, but it could be a different kind of diplomacy.
well, also he might not be a diplomat.
And he might not be a diplomat. We don't know yet.
One thing I think it would be interesting is if Picard was a little bit more like an Indiana Jones type of character, where he's going
Space
off.
archaeologist.
Yes, exactly. Where he's like.
I could see him doing that, like the character. Like, he has his long, storied Starfleet career, decides, time for something else. Time to, pursue this thing I had a passion for when I was younger. And, I think Starfleet doesn't need me anymore, so I'm going to actually go for it. And then adventure ensues. That could be a cool storyline.
Go explore sites while I still have my health.
Yeah. Getting back to what somebody else said there about how does he manage to avoid the gaining dementia and all that, I have to mention that was a possible future, so that's probably not set in stone.
Yeah.
No.
Actually, as far as the dementia goes, it could have also been a misdiagnosis. He's bobbing around from time frame to time frame, so maybe they think it's dementia, it's really not dementia.
That's true. How many episodes have we seen where, someone's like in an alternate universe and everyone's like, you're crazy, but they're actually just from another universe.
Right.
Right. Plus also the fact that the Enterprise D was destroyed, and it was still flying around in all good things. Upgraded, but it was still flying around.
Right.
And, of course, they went to the Enterprise E. I don't know. Somebody was not happy.
So what are some things you guys would like to see in the new Picard show? I know we mentioned we want to see the return of the flute.
Seeing him use more of his problem detective skills.
Okay.
I want to know if he ended up with Beverly.
Ooh.
What was that about the holodeck?
She asked about him using more of his detective skills, in the holodeck or out of the holodeck.
I think outside the holodeck. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to see the return of the holodeck.
True. Holodecks are awesome.
Yeah. Although I wonder if they would evolve it, since it's supposed to take place a few decades later. I wonder if the holodeck would have more abilities.
It had too many as it was.
Yeah, really.
That's true.
As long as they don't overuse it, because that's where it was in danger of getting overused, I think.
I feel like the reason they overused it was because they probably went on location to like film things that were supposed to take place in the holodeck.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, as long as we have all of our actors, you know, in this location that we spent weeks building, we might as well try to get a few more episodes out of it. That's how it felt sometimes.
I can't believe they ever allow one on a ship with the danger it puts the ship in.
There is no holodeck.
Well,
They're no longer standard.
just as long as you don't ask the computer to make a character that can defeat Data, I think you're okay. You know, it's just. Yeah.
TFM.
Or, you know, have some alien artificial intelligence start messing with the thing, and
Yep.
yeah,
What
that.
if the holodeck gains sentience? Like the Danger Room does in X-Men.
That actually reminds me of the Orville,
Oh, yeah,
where
the Orville.
where a virus messed up with their version of the holodeck.
Yeah,
Oh boy.
yeah, that.
Be careful with that black market software there.
So, which cast members? I think we briefly touched on this. Would we, from the Next Generation, would we like
Or
to
even
see?
any of the other shows.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I don't know if we'll see Brent Spiner on there, because really it would be impossible, because he's Data's an android, he doesn't age, so it's going to be weird to see an older Brent Spiner on the show.
He could play a descendant of Noonien Soon.
But also based on what they've just done with Samuel L. Jackson in the Avengers.
That's
I'm
true.
sorry, in the Captain Marvel movie, you can make him look younger.
Data decides he wants to just look older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Robert Picardo could show up as one of the alternate doctors.
Yeah. Please state the nature of the medical emergency. I would love Robert Picardo to come back to that part. He was actually really awesome in that episode he did a few weeks ago on Orville.
Oh, yeah.
It was great.
I think you had something to say.
Well, interesting, a spin-off on the Data. Jonathan Frakes actually said once, you know, we could have made Data just decide to look older. So what I would like to see in this show is a resolution of the Data 2.0. Did he get to be as smart as our Data? Did Picard bond with him? That kind of thing. Probably, and that would be maybe part of the Data 2.0 would be he decided to age. And so,
That would be really interesting. Data's goal was always to be human. Data 2.0 could have taken that extra step and been like, hey, humans age. If I want to be human, I have to age.
Or at least look like I'm aging.
Yeah.
To be more relatable.
True.
Well, certainly in one of the books, Data, Noonien Sung, it turned out he didn't actually die. He actually put his brain into a new android body. And this one was a lot more advanced than Data. And then when he found out Data had been killed but it left his memories in B4, he went to find B4 so that he could upgrade him. And then ultimately, when he realized that Data's consciousness was going to die, he uploaded Data into the new advanced body and then deleted himself. So, and apparently this new body could alter its appearance. So, yeah, why not? I mean, why not just say that somehow they built a more advanced body that could look more human? And Data, I don't think Brett is that crazy about putting back on the gold makeup, but I think he would love to revisit that character in a more advanced form in some way. I think if they offered it to him that way, I think he might take them up on the idea.
I'd love to see 7 of 9 make an appearance. I think it'd be interesting to see how Picard would react to 7 of 9 given his experience with the Borg.
True.
On the one hand, he's, Picard accepting of everyone, and he'd probably understand that, 7 of 9 didn't have much say in whether she was a Borg or not. On the other hand, she is part of, this traumatic past for him, in a way.
Well, she had his memories since they were a hive mind. So.
That's true. She would remember Locutus. Yeah. Yeah, I guess they haven't confirmed the timeline, have they? It could, because I guess in real life it's been 20 years since we last saw him, but they could do whatever they want in the story. They could set it 50 years later and people in the future might live longer.
Yeah.
Well, definitely, and still be a lot more active.
Yeah,
I mean,
he could be like a 120-year-old Picard as opposed to an 80-year-old Picard.
Well, McCoy was 139 when Next Gen started.
Right, and when he went to inspect the Enterprise,
That's right.
yeah, and he seemed like he was still looked older, but yes. Sorry, were you getting ready to raise your hand? Okay. That does bring up an interesting thing, is that I know that we've been saying for a couple of years now, Discovery is supposed to take place in the prime timeline, but Alex Kurtzman let something I think kind of slip. Was a few weeks ago, somebody asked the cast members of Discovery who you would like to work with from an earlier Star Trek show, and pretty much most of them all said Patrick Stewart. And they asked Kurtzman if he thought there was going to be a crossover at some point between Picard and Discovery. And he said, no, they take place in two different timelines. So does that mean, did he miss up his... Right, yeah.
With all the transporter accidents and alternate universes. Like,
yeah,
this
exactly.
is Star Trek. They can do whatever they want.
Oh, yeah. I mean, why...
Yeah.
Right. But does that mean...
Star Trek, they believe in alternate universes.
Right.
Yeah.
So does that mean, Discovery is actually in an alternate universe and Picard is just going to be back in the prime timeline that we've always known, or...
I don't. Maybe like Kurtzman was saying, like using a loose definition of timeline in that. Maybe he just meant like two different historical eras.
Right.
Yeah.
So either
Time
way,
travel's a thing.
Yeah, time travel is always possible. Have TARDIS will travel.
Yep.
And I would love to see Picard.
Shot around the sun.
Yeah, I was like, just
The Guardian
go
of Forever.
I mean, it is, to me, it's not an impossibility for, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in the final episode of this season of Discovery. I mean, for all we know, they've had Spock, okay, what would top Spock? Picard. Maybe he walks in, maybe he turns around and looks at Michael Burnham walking past him and it's like, oh, it's Picard. And it's like, does this lead into season 3 of Discovery? Because, yeah. Yes, sir.
Is it awful that I'm not as excited to see Spock, but I was more excited to see number 1?
No.
Because of the imagine the alternate universe where it actually let number 1 be a character, unlike.
Yeah, well, I think, if it hadn't have been, I think for Jonathan, Jeffrey Hunter's wife, Majel Barrett might very well have played number 1, and we might have actually finally learned what her name was from that episode. But that was not meant to be.
Yeah.
So, which is really sad because I thought Majel Barrett was a damn good actress.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, all she had to do was put on a blonde wig and she's Nurse Chapel.
I like Nurse Chapel okay. I loved Loxana Troy. I don't care what anybody said. I loved her.
She's the best.
She was like my spiritual grandmother.
She was also great in Babylon 5 too.
She was amazing on Babylon 5. She was amazing.
I've heard
Did that
was
one
it
episode.
Majel who referred to Loxana Torres? Somebody compared her to the anti-mame of the universe or something like that. Yeah, that's a very apt comparison.
Yep.
Yeah, I almost cried when I found out she died. I was just like, oh, how can that happen? Because she was amazing, and she really, I think, fought for Gene's vision after he was gone.
Yeah.
Didn't always succeed, but she kept, trying to keep Star Trek to its, what Gene would have, the true purpose. And, that was another story. But I always loved how she tried to get under Picard's skin. Didn't you always think that was really funny? It's like, Jean-Luc? Shame on you.
Naughty thoughts.
Maybe we'll find out that they got married after all.
Boy, that would have been awkward.
That would be an epic opening shot. Just like the two of them, on a porch somewhere.
No, I don't know, maybe. I don't know if Loxana's the porch sitting type, though.
This is true. More likely
Picard.
in a ballroom somewhere.
Oh, definitely, yeah. She definitely would have to be in the center of attention,
He's carrying her luggage like Mr. Holmes.
Yeah. Well, it's...
And Beverly Crusher's giving her, both of them actually, dirty looks.
Well, it's Loxana's universe. We just all kind of orbit around her.
We just live here.
Yeah. So, How we doing on time?
I think we're just about out. Yeah.
That's about it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming. Please come up and have some chocolate. Thank you all for coming. And please come back here tomorrow at 5 for our panel on the case for a Captain Worf series.
Yes.